What's driving the surge? The numbers are eye-opening. In a study published earlier this year, researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital found that the proportion of women diagnosed with stage 1 to stage 3 cancer in one breast who decided to have CPM more than tripled between 2002 and 2012, from less than 4% to nearly 13%. I wasn't surprised, because I see it every day in my practice, but it is somewhat concerning, says senior study author Mekri Gulshan, MD, chair of surgical oncology at Brigham and Women's. Double mastectomy isn't without risks, especially when you have reconstruction, too, which the majority of women choose to do. And it doesn't increase your chance of surviving the cancer, because breast cancer is unlikely to spread to the other breast. In other words, if your goal is to beat the cancer you have, removing a healthy breast will most likely give you little, if any, survival advantage. So why are so many women doing it? Worry tops the list. When Christine Hunt, 48, of Brooklyn, Connecticut, was diagnosed with stage 1, chemo-resistant breast cancer in 2014, the same year her mom was diagnosed for a second time, she knew she wanted a double mastectomy. Like Kathy Bressler's mother, Hunt's mom had gotten a single mastectomy and then developed cancer in her other breast decades later. I didn't want to have to constantly worry one or if the other shoe was going to drop, says Hunt. It's natural for women who are diagnosed with breast cancer to feel anxious about cancerous cells cropping up in their other breast, and it can happen, says Todd Tuttle, MD, Chief of Surgical Oncology at the University of Minnesota Medical School. But fear can cause you to grossly overestimate the risk, he says. In a survey Dr. Tuttle and his colleagues conducted several years ago, they found that women who had cancer in one breast thought their odds of developing a potentially deadly tumor in the other were over 30%, far higher than the actual risk of 4 to 5%, he says. Related, a complete guide to breast cancer screening. Doctors may be inadvertently fueling women's anxiety by ordering more MRIs of both breasts for those who are newly diagnosed, adds Dr. Sobel. Because MRIs provide more sensitive images of the breast tissue than mammograms, they're more likely to find suspicious-looking, but ultimately harmless, abnormalities in the cancer-free breast. That may scare some women into thinking that they should have the healthy breast removed just in case, says Dr. Sobel. But even if you understand the low likelihood of developing cancer in the other breast, it can still be difficult to quell your fear that spikes every time you have a mammogram or feel something unusual in your breast, notes Shoshana Rosenberg, SCD, an epidemiologist at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston. Over the course of a decade, Nicole Witt, 47, of Brandon, Florida, endured 7 biopsies for suspicious mammography findings before finally having a double mastectomy in 2013. My sister was diagnosed with breast cancer in her 30s, so I started getting mammograms really early, she says. I had so many biopsies, I felt like I was having a mastectomy piece by piece. It was incredibly stressful. When my last biopsy revealed cells that weren't cancerous but weren't 100% normal, either, my doctor and I agreed I should have a double mastectomy. It's been such a relief to put that issue behind me. The younger you are, the more time you have to potentially develop a second cancer, and that can make anxiety a potent consideration for women in their 20s and 30s, says Rosenberg. You can tell a young woman that the risk of contralateral breast cancer is low, but her risk of getting cancer in the first place was low, so reassurances only go so far. And if women have young children, often the first thing they think of is wanting to be around to watch their kids grow up, she says. If you don't think you can bear the stress and worry of having mammograms every 6 months, a prophylactic mastectomy might be the right choice. That said, surgery probably isn't the best remedy for anxiety. Related, 22 ways to help a friend with breast cancer. Changing times. Yet it's not just anxiety driving the trend, there's also been a subtle attitudinal shift in favor of double mastectomy that may be encouraging more women these days to go for the more extreme treatment. As medical historians have pointed out, 50 years ago doctors were more inclined to recommend that women have radical mastectomies, so women felt that taking charge of their health meant saving their breasts by having a lumpectomy with radiation, says Karen Hurley, Ph.D., a clinical psychologist in New York City who specializes in hereditary cancer risk. Today, in part because of news coverage of genetic mutations, women tend to see double mastectomy as the empowered choice, says Hurley. There's not a lot of talk about the bravery of women who choose to keep their breasts and maintain their screening regimens. That change in attitude stems partly from the media's coverage of celebrities with breast cancer, says Drive Sobel. He and his colleagues recently analyzed news reports from 2000 to 2012, years when the rate of CPM climbed ever higher, and found that, when a star had a bilateral, double, Mastectomy, her treatment was the focus of the story, the coverage tended to be positive, and the risks and benefits of the choice weren't clarified. In articles about celebrities who had unilateral mastectomies or lumpectomies, their treatment often wasn't even mentioned, says Dr. Sabel. Celebrities can impact trends, even when it comes to major health decisions. Get more information at www.fitnessgrudge.com. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.